places. This week we've been at the Richmond Public Library, Firehouse, of course, 1708 Gallery, and the Bird Theater for our programs, and also even Martha's Darkroom. One of our guests, John Porter, is a filmmaker from Toronto, did a workshop the other day in which, how many of you ever shot Super 8 before? Remember, it comes in that plastic canister, you take it back to the photo place and send it away. You get to see it 3 weeks later, right? Well, what they did was they shot Super 8 film. They smashed the canister, took the film out, developed it in big 5-gallon buckets, hung it up in the trees to dry behind the library, and projected it the same afternoon. So that's the kind of things we do. We're very kind of a working festival. We want to accent, accentuate the idea of the people like Kevin, people who are working, actually making films. But we also like to showcase, classic films, especially those classic films in the independent school. Later today we have several things coming up following Kevin's program here, the GPA program, which I thank you all guys for coming. Is a 1:30 show. Laura Browder teaches at VCU, and she's made a film called Going to Texas. The life and times of one Forrest Carter, who at one point as Asa Carter wrote speeches for George Wallace and established a radical faction of the KKK. 10 years later, he wrote a best-selling book, which was, what's the name of that book, James?
Educational Literature.
Educational Literature. How many people remember that book from the 70s? It was on the New York Times bestseller list. Yeah, and it's the one and the same guy who writes this beautiful tale of a young Cherokee boy growing up with his grandparents, and at the same time, with a previous life, in a way, was Asa Carter. He was back then he was too radical for George Wallace's politics. So that's her thing. It's called Going to Texas. That's at 1:30. At 3:30, we're showing Killer of Sheep. Perhaps one of the most important films in the history of African-American cinema. I really think so. It had been unavailable for 30 years. It's just been re-released, and Mr. Burdett was one of our guests some years ago. That's Killer of Sheep at 3:30. At 5:30, we have David Williams, who's again a local filmmaker. His documentary on Kawashima's Curve. It's a documentary on a Japanese bamboo sculptor who did a residency last year at the Visual Arts. And anybody see that show, the bamboo sculpture? It was beautiful. And then we follow that at 5:30. At 7:30, we have our final show. We close the festival after a week with Bound for Glory. David Carradine plays Woody Guthrie. It's a film directed by Hal Ashby, one of the hot directors of the 70s. If you love the films of the 70s, you might remember Harold and Maude, Coming Home, for which he won the Oscar. He was a fabulous director, and he also did Shampoo on that same decade. We're showing Bound for Glory to close the program. So please pick up a program, and we still have a full afternoon and evening's worth of events. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Kevin here, Kevin Hirschberger, for